In 2017, the National Initiative for the Care of the Elderly issued the results of a national survey on the mistreatment of older Canadians. This survey revealed that in Canada, the prevalence of elder abuse, physical, sexual, psychological, financial, was 7.5%, representing 695,248 Canadians. This survey did not even cover instances of neglect. This video was produced to raise awareness of these hidden crimes. It also provides insight into the complexities of providing access to justice for older adults who are victimized. Finally, it provides opportunities for change and healing through restorative approaches.
Well, I wish to thank Eva for asking me to participate in this project a few years ago and to now complete it. The video that you're about to watch was produced as a teaching tool to provide insight into the challenges and complexities of ensuring access to justice for victims affected by elder abuse. The role play in this video is based upon the facts of an actual case involving an elderly mother and her son. This included petty acts of theft and escalated to major embezzlement. As a result, the son breached the trust of his mother's financial power of attorney. Now, the first part of the video is a recreation of the criminal trial of the son. The second part is a recreation of a peace-building circle led by Eva. And she's conducted this kind of process for many, many years.
Hello, Margaret. I'm back.
Hello, Gary. I'm in the living room.
Well, I got the stuff you wanted. The bread, the soup, cheese, and jam. Oh, I got us a bottle of sherry. Now, you like sherry, don't you? Let's have some now.
Heavens, Gary, not at this hour. But if that's what you want to do, sit there and relax while I put these away.
I could do that for you.
Oh, no, thank you. You don't know where they go. And besides, my arthritis is much better today. I'll only be a minute.
Did you ask about that money? You were worried about my going to the bank?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, Gary. Did you get my bank statement?
No. The lineup was so big, I would have been all day. But I'll get it next time I go by. Don't worry about it.
Oh, thank you, dear. You're such a great help. There, that didn't take long, did it? Now, tell me about your business. The last time you were here, you were quite concerned about it.
Well, you know the printing business, it has its ups and downs. We're doing better right now. In fact, I think we'll show a profit next month.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. You know, Gary, I'd loan you some money, but I have to be careful. I may need it to look after my future.
What do you mean?
My health, Gary. I may need to go to a nursing home.
Oh, one of those? No way. They're impersonal. They're expensive. Not as long as you have me looking after you. You're okay the way you are. Don't even think of a nursing home as long as I'm here.
Oh, you're such a great help to me, Gary. I don't know what I'd do without you.
Well, that's so true. There's nothing I won't do for my mom. But, I got to get back to the old salt mine. So I'll see you soon. See ya. Take care.
Don't forget the bank, Gary. Gary.
Hello, Mrs. Smith. It's Jane. Jane, your social worker. May I come in?
Oh, Jane. Oh, yes, Jane. Do come in.
Hello. I hope you're feeling well today. Oh dear, you're looking upset. Is something the matter?
Oh, there's nothing the matter with my health. Actually, on the new prescription, I'm doing much better. It's something else, another problem.
Well, would you like to talk about it?
Oh, no, it's personal. But I have to tell somebody.
You can tell me.
Jane, there's large sums of money missing from my bank account, and I did not take them out.
Your son helps you with with your finances, doesn't he? Have you talked to him about it?
Gary's such a good boy. I depend on him for all my errands. But I wish he'd help me find out what's the matter with my bank account. Why should there be $40,000 missing? I know there's been some bill payments, but nothing like that. Or am I beginning to lose my mind, Jane?
Well, what exactly did you say to him?
Oh, well, I asked him if he'd get me my bank statements, but he hasn't done that. I think maybe he may have taken $40,000.
$40,000 is a very large sum of money, Mrs. Smith. Would you like to talk to somebody? Perhaps call the police.
Oh, no, not the police. What would happen to Gary? What would happen to me? I depend on Gary for everything. Oh, what should I do? What should I do?
Please rise. Court is now in session.
Be seated. Good morning, counsel.
Your Honor, the next case is the matter of the Crown versus Gary Smith on the charge of fraud and theft from his mother, Mrs. Smith.
Gary Smith, you're charged with theft of $40,000, and you're also charged with fraud as a result of forgery of checks resulting in the theft of sums totaling $40,000. How do you plead to these charges?
Not guilty, Your Honor.
All right, then you can sit down. You're appearing for the Crown?
I am.
All right.
Ms. Jansen, initial M.
All right, good morning, Ms. Jansen. Are you ready to proceed?
I am.
Thank you.
First witness I'd like to call is Mrs. Smith. Could you please come up here, ma'am?
Morning, Mrs. Smith.
Morning.
Can you place your hand on the Bible, please? Do you swear to tell the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Mrs. Smith, I understand you live here in the city of Etobicoke at an address of 130 Bathurst Street. Is that right?
That's correct.
And who do you live there with?
I live alone.
All right. Now, I understand you're here in court today because there was a problem. Can you tell us what that problem was?
Because there was a large amount of money missing from my bank account.
How much money was missing from your bank account?
I think about 25,000, but I'm not sure. I haven't been very good with numbers of late.
Now, Mrs. Smith, do you remember giving a statement to a police officer?
Yes.
And would it help you to refresh your memory from that statement as to the amount of money that went missing?
Yes.
Does
Oh.
that refresh your memory as to how much money you believed was missing from your account?
Yes. There were so many statements and papers, and I started to get a bit confused, but I'm sure $40,000 is the correct amount.
All right. Now, do you manage your own banking?
Oh, not really anymore. My son Gary does all my banking, and he works with Julia. I'm not as young as I used to be, you know.
Where do you keep your checkbook?
Oh, in my purse somewhere.
And do you write out your own checks?
Oh, yes.
I'm
I
going to
do.
be showing you some checks. And I'm going to ask you whether you recognize these checks. First of all, are these the type of checks that are part of your bank account?
Well, that's the number.
And do you recognize the name that those checks are made out to?
They're made out to Gary, my son.
Okay, and the amounts?
Well, one is 15,000, and one is 10, and one is 15,000.
Do you recall ever writing those amounts in terms of writing out checks to your son, Gary?
No, nothing that big.
All right. And if you look at the signature, do you recognize that signature?
Well, it looks something like mine, but I never made those amounts out to Gary. We didn't have bills that cost that much.
All right. Your Honor, I'd like to file these 3 checks as exhibits in this trial.
Thank you,
Checks
counsel.
dated April 15th, April 23rd, and May 1st.
We'll mark them as a composite exhibit, Exhibit 1.
Thank you. Now, Mrs. Smith, do you often have visitors in your home?
Not really. There's just my son and Jane, sometimes my grandson. And oh yes, the nurse comes in a couple times a week. So there's a few people.
Do the nurse or the grandson, do any of these people have any responsibility with your financial affairs?
No, excepting my son.
All right. Now, when did you first notice that the money was missing?
Well, I think it was June, but it could have been May because I got a bank statement that wasn't accurate, but I thought it was maybe an error by the bank, so I just let it go. But then it happened again in June, and so I became worried then. I sometimes have trouble making out all these statements.
Now, you mentioned someone by the name of Julia earlier. Who is Julia?
Julia Grayson. Julia's been helping me with when my husband was living, with our banking and financial matters for over 45 years. She's a teller with the Commonwealth Bank close to our neighborhood, and she's sitting in the courtroom somewhere right there.
Your Honor, I'm going to be seeking leave to call Ms. Greason, I believe you indicated her name was, as the next witness. Those are all the questions I have for now, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes.
Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning.
I'm counsel for Mr. Smith, and if you don't understand my questions, please ask me to repeat myself, and I'll do so. I understand that you ordinarily keep your checkbook in your purse. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Right. And you leave your purse somewhere in your home? Do you know where you typically leave your purse?
No particular place. Maybe on the kitchen table, I suppose.
Earlier you mentioned to my friend that there were several people that visit you frequently, correct?
Yes,
Your son,
yes,
your grandson.
yes,
Your grandson's in his 20s, correct?
yes,
Jane.
yes.
Was there anybody else?
The nurse.
Okay. And they come into your home and greet you?
Yeah, the odd time, or two of them every day.
So it's possible that these individuals, all of them, would have access to your purse?
I suppose so, yes.
Okay. Now, is it fair to say that you wouldn't know which one of them had access to your purse at any given time?
Guess not.
So you can't be sure that Gary, for example, had access to your purse and used your checkbook?
Not really. Gary's such a good son, and I'm sure if he did this, he would do it with the idea that he'd pay me back. I don't want to see him charged with anything criminal over the result of all this.
Ma'am, you're 89 years old?
Yes, don't tell anybody.
And you mentioned that you're no longer, or I don't want to misstate your words, but you're not as good with numbers as you used to be, correct?
No, that's correct. No, I'm not good with numbers anymore.
And sometimes when you look at bank statements or papers, you get confused.
Wouldn't you at my age?
Indeed, you mentioned to my friend that sometimes you have difficulty understanding such things.
Yes.
In aging, has your memory faded?
No, not that much. My legs hurt, and I have heart problems, but my memory's not too bad so far.
Okay, so difficulty comprehending bank statements, fair?
Well, I guess so. So much stuff is in there that they don't need to put in. If they just do something simple, why then wouldn't be any problem.
Confusion with numbers,
I'll bet.
but you say your memory's still intact.
As far as I know,
Okay. Is it not plausible that the checks that my friend presented to you that form part of Exhibit A were in fact written by you?
oh no, that's not so. I don't forget any checks that I write. On my bank book, I have everything written down. And these checks were missing. And the stubs where I usually write what the check is for, the stubs were just there vacant. Oh no, I don't forget writing checks. I know what checks I've written. But if Gary'd asked me, I'd have given it to him.
Thank you, ma'am. I have no further questions.
Any re-examination?
No, nothing further. Thank you very
All
much
right.
for coming.
Thanks, Mrs. Smith. You can step down now. Thank you very much.
Next witness I'd like to call then is Constable Martin.
Please place your hand on the Bible. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So
I do.
help you God.
Constable Martin, you're a member of the Waterloo Regional Police Service, are you?
Yes, I am.
How long have you been a police officer?
20 years.
I understand you became aware of these checks that have been filed as an exhibit?
Yes, I did.
What do you know about them?
On July 1st, I received a call from Mrs. Jane Scott. She was calling on behalf of Mrs. Smith. Mrs. Smith had noticed that there was some money missing from her bank account, and she had some concerns that her son might have been stealing it. So on July 3rd, I had the occasion to attend her residence and take a statement from her with regards to the missing checks. She was quite adamant that she was very aware of which checks she had written and which ones were missing. She told me also that she didn't believe her son was actually stealing from her, but that he was just taking the money from the account. And she really wanted him to stop because she was very worried that she was going to run out of money. She didn't want him to get into any trouble, but she did agree to a police investigation, and if charges were warranted, she was in agreement with that.
All right. Is there any other information about Mr. Smith relevant to this case?
Mr. Smith had a police record as well. He was convicted of theft approximately 6 years ago. He had taken a piece of Mrs. Smith's art collection without her permission, sold it, and used the money for his business.
All right. Those are all the questions I have for you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any cross-examination, Mr. Clement?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Constable. You're excused.
Thank you. Next witness I'd like to call in is Julia Greason.
Jump forward, please, Ms. Reason.
Please place your right hand on the Bible. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
Ms. Greason, I understand that you work for the bank.
Yes, I do.
Which bank is that?
The Bank of Montreal.
And how long have you worked there?
I've worked there for 45 years.
I kind of
Mrs.
doubt it.
Smith was one of my first clients. I'm 68. I use oil of Olay.
So you're familiar with both Mrs. Smith and with Gary Smith?
Yes, I've known them for quite some time. The whole time I've been working at the bank, I would consider them both friends.
Okay. Now, did you become aware of some problems with Mrs. Smith's banking account?
Well, no. I mean, I've known them for quite some time. I've done Mrs. Smith's personal accounts, and, you know, I've been dealing with Gary's business woes. And I know Mrs. Smith's contributions have been really helping Gary. He comes in from time to time, and he'll deposit the checks that have been given to him, and I know they're close, so.
All right, and the checks you're referring to are the checks that, excuse me, if I might have those here. Do you recognize those checks?
Yes, I do.
And these are the checks that you say Gary Smith has brought into your bank and deposited into his business account?
Yes, into the account for his business. These are the checks, yes.
Did you ever contact Mrs. Smith to determine whether she, in fact, had signed those particular checks?
No, because I know, you know, Gary and her are quite close, and he's helping her out a lot, so it didn't seem out of the ordinary to me at all. And the signatures looked, you know, I've been working with her for 45 years, and the signature looks exactly the same to me.
Okay. Those are all the questions I have. Thank you.
Any cross-examination?
Good morning. I understand that over the long period of time in which you've interacted with both Miss Smith and her son, that you've observed Miss Smith gifting amounts of money to Mr. Smith. Is that not so?
Well, Gary would come into the banks with the checks, and so I assumed that those were given to him or gifted to him, and so the signature was there, and I just deposited the checks.
That's a fair assumption that you've made because Miss Smith never said anything to you about it, correct?
Well, no. I mean, I know their relationship, and so, and I recognize the signature, and I've been working with them for 45 years, and so, you know, the signature's the same.
Right. So it made sense that it could be a gift, for example.
It made sense to me that it could be a gift, yes.
Right. Now, I suppose then that you can't assist the court, the judge, in coming to any understanding about these checks other than to say, well, it's quite likely that it was a gift.
It's quite likely it was a gift, and from what I can tell in the signatures, then, yeah. I thought I was doing the right thing, yeah.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
No re-examination?
No reexamination, and that's the case
Is
for the Crown.
that's the case for the Crown? Thank you, Ms. Jansen. Mr. Clement, are you calling any evidence on behalf of Mr. Smith?
No, the defense will not be calling any evidence.
All right. Well then, thank you for your submissions. Would you stand up, please, Mr. Smith? Mr. Smith, I have carefully considered all of the evidence that I've heard today, and I'm satisfied beyond a reasonable doubt that on the evidence before me, and in particular Mrs. Smith's evidence regarding the 3 checks marked as Exhibit 1, that you forged those checks and used the funds for your own purposes without Mrs. Smith's consent or permission, and accordingly I find you guilty of the charge of theft and for $40,000. And having heard submissions from both counsel with respect to the appropriate penalty that I should impose, and in light of your previous conviction, which this is a very serious matter, I've got no alternative, Mr. Smith, than to sentence you to a period of incarceration of 1 year. I also want to ensure that there is no repetition of this conduct in relation to Mrs. Smith, and I am following your sentence of incarceration, or placing you on probation for a period of 1 year, on one of the terms of which will be that you're to have no contact whatsoever with Mrs. Smith.
Please rise. This court is now adjourned.
What does this mean? Who will look after me now? I can't afford to pay for all these going and things.
You didn't
I
wanted to see
don't
him?
want him to go to prison.
The judge was real, the Crown was real, the prosecutor was real, the police were real, and thank you all of them for so much for agreeing to be actors. So extra applause for those folks. And thank you so much for cutting it short. There was so much that could have been said there. But that's what happens in court, families torn apart. What happens if this family decides to go another route? Suppose they choose to go to restorative justice, where the emphasis is not on guilty and innocent. Suppose the emphasis that Mrs. Smith wants is on restoring her relationship with her son. Now, it's true that guilty and innocent could be determined, but suppose the emphasis is on keeping this family together.
Thank you very much for taking the time to come here today. Thank you, Mrs. Smith. Thank you, Mr. Smith. And I especially also want to thank all of our other participants here for being willing to take time from your busy lives to try and see how we can work with the family to see where we can go and what we can accomplish together. But we've all agreed that we would speak honestly, that we would speak from the heart. We've agreed that we would speak with respect towards one another, even when sometimes that may not be easy. We are using a talking piece, and we have agreed that we will only speak when we have the talking piece in our hand, because that way it will make sure, we will be sure that everyone can say exactly what they need to say in the amount of time they need to say it. And then you don't have to speak when you have the talking piece, so you can just pass. So it's entirely up to you if you feel that you have something to add to the conversation as it's going around in the circle. And finally, circles are places for private conversations. And there are a lot of private issues here. In every family there are private issues. And so the general rule of circles that we have already reviewed, that what comes out in circle stays in circle, because that enables people to participate more freely and more honestly. So we're hoping that you will each be remembering of this, remember this particular guideline. Okay, so for our circle today, it's a very special circle. We usually have one talking piece, but today we're going to have two. So if I can pass the talking piece and the second talking piece.
Well, I'm Gary, and I guess I'm the villain here in this group. And I've done everything. I guess I've made some wrongs, but I think I've done a lot of rights. And I want to be recognized for the positive things.
I'm Mabel. I'm Gary's wife. I'm really, really surprised about the suggestion that he was stealing from his mother. I've been very worried about money, because I know he's been worried. And I've been worried about his drinking too, because it seems to me that lately Gary's been drinking a lot more, but I'm here to support him.
My name is Frances, and I am Gary's sister. And I'm here to support Gary because he is a fine man. And following the inheritance of the business from our father, he ran into some financial difficulty. And I believe that that is when his drinking started. But I still support him.
I'm Albert. I'm Gary's addiction counselor. I've been working with him with his alcoholism for 5 months.
I'm Roy James. I'm the rector at St. Jude's, and I've known the Smith family for a long, long time, and frankly, I'm very surprised to hear that Gary's been taking money from his mother. Of course, the family hasn't been coming out to church regularly lately, but I'm here to help and here to support every member of the family to get through this situation and to come out the other end so that everyone is better in the long run.
My name is Arlene, and I am a co-facilitator for this circle. I also want to thank everyone for all of the hard work leading up to this circle. Everybody has been working hard to to tell their story and try to understand the situation. And I look forward to moving ahead in a good way.
I'm Jane. I'm a social worker with the Community Care Access Centre, and I have been Mrs. Smith's social worker for about a year. I have been working with her to provide her with the supports and services she needs. I've been aware that her son Gary has done a very great deal for her. She has depended on him a lot. But I know how very upset she is about this whole situation. I'm here at Mrs. Smith's request, and I hope we will be able to find some solutions that help her and Gary.
I'm Jean Brown. I'm Agnes's sister. She called and asked me to be here as a support, so I am here. I must admit, I am very skeptical about the outcome of this circle, given what Gary has been doing, but she wants me here, so I am here.
My name's Tom, and this is my grandmother. I am Gary's son. I am here to support my grandmother and my grandmother alone. I'm not here to support Gary whatsoever, and I just want this to be resolved. I'll do anything to help my grandmother.
I'm Agnes Smith, Gary's mother, and I'm here because all this money has been taken from my bank account, and Gary's been responsible.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I wonder if we can do another round, and given what you've heard from everybody here in this first round, if you can give us some suggestions from your own perspective as to what we need to do to move forward, to start moving forward.
Well, I certainly need help relative to drinking, and my counselor over here, we've chatted about it. Perhaps joining AA, if it's that serious. Drinking isn't the problem why this money has transpired. That's because I was always taught by my dad to run the business, which is a big thing, and not involve my mother in the money because she had enough things to worry about, and certainly I've tried to look after her. So whether the two of us can talk more about it and get clear how the finances are, I could try to do that, maybe level more with her. Because some people said I haven't talked to her about it. I supposedly stole money that I think I've taken for the good of her and the company. Anyway, I'll look at that alcoholism, and I'll look at whether she and I can do more. And I'm disappointed my son is not backing me up, but I'm not surprised because I've been busy trying to keep the business going.
Well, I was sad to hear Tom talk like that, but I'm not surprised because we've been cut out. You've been so kind to your mother. You've done so much for her. That's why I'm so shocked about the money. But you've been with her a lot more than you've been with me and Tom. And we think it would be a very good idea. I think it would be a good idea if you could talk to me sometimes and tell me about the problem. Sometimes I've felt very cut out and very isolated. And I will just say that my husband is a good man. He's a decent man.
As his sister, this is the first time that I have heard about this also, and I am disappointed, Gary. But I feel that you are definitely a very good person and that you can, with our help here, turn this around.
I must give Gary credit for coming to me on his own 5 months ago, looking for help. Now, we haven't progressed very far, and it's going to take a long while, but he's optimistic, and so am I.
Well, you know, I think that there's going to be a lot of talk about healing, and there's going to be a lot of talk about forgiveness. So I'm looking forward to the whole community helping each and any member of this family who wants to take a step forward and move towards forgiveness. Because I think any step forward, realistic step forward, would be good and would be a positive step.
During the year or so that I have been working with Mrs. Smith, There's no question that her health has deteriorated. She is in need of much more assistance than when I first was with her. She now receives from the CCAC full hours from a personal support worker. She also is seen by a visiting nurse every other week. And she is, in addition, paying for extra personal support worker hours out of her own money. So there's no question that her needs have increased. And there has been a lot of extra work as well from Gary. He has been doing a great deal to help her. Without that, I think there's not much doubt that she would be at the least in a retirement home at this stage.
My suggestion would be to lock Gary up and throw away the key. I don't know why my sister believes him when he tells him these things, but I think she'd be better off without him. Gary, how could you do this to my sister?
I don't necessarily think you should go to jail, Dad, but really, I'm not doing this for your benefit, but maybe my mom's benefit, my grandma's benefit, that I'll pitch in, I'll start helping her out. We can figure something out amongst us afterwards. I'm not too sure. You can tell me some of her chores. I can run some errands for her. I don't mind, but again, I should reiterate, I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for Mom, and I'm doing it for Grandma.
Well, I've depended on Gary for so many things, and he's been such a good son to me, but I'm not sure I can trust him anymore.
We've heard some things that I think may in fact be hopeful signs. Gary, you have initiated some counseling to deal with your drinking. And it looks like that may still take a while, but at least you've taken that step and you've acknowledged that that's a problem that you have to deal with. And so I think that's a pretty hopeful sign. And most of you are, in fact, saying that you believe that Gary's actually a good person. And that's hopeful as well. It's also obvious that, Mrs. Smith, that you do need help and you need attention, and you may be needing more as time progresses. And so then the question really is, and you do have a fair bit of support in a number of different ways in terms of your health and personal care and so on. But it seems to me that where we really need to focus some time and attention is this whole question of managing your money in your bank accounts. And I'd like to just pose the question as to what sort of thoughts do people have going forward as to how this can be done so that there's an assurance that the kind of temptations or the kind of challenges that have led you, Gary, to take some of this money, that those things don't happen going forward. What can we do?
Well, not being trusted certainly doesn't help a person be positive, but on the other hand, I guess you're going to say I caused it. As I said earlier, we'll try to be more open about the finances. Ultimately, we can get that so-called missed money, stolen money, back into Mom's account. But we want to also hope that the company doesn't go bankrupt, then we won't have anything at all. So not drinking, I guess that's caused some of the problem at the business. with the recession we've had, that hasn't helped. So I'll work better with a finance person, continue with my help with the addiction thing, and try to get your trust back, Mom. I'll continue to do the things I do. It'd be better. But the main thing is that we've got to talk about the finances more openly and with you too. So try to get my son trusting me again. So it'll be an uphill battle. We have a business to worry about, but gosh, I can only hope I can help get it together.
Well, I can help you a little bit with the finances, I think. I know a little bit about that. But if you're working with a financial advisor and with a counselor for your alcohol use, I'm going to help you, and I think that you can get it back together again, Gary. I really do.
There's no question that Gary loves his mother, because I have seen that. And unfortunately, I have not been able to spend as much time with the family as I would have liked to. But going forward, I plan to be with you more, Gary, and help you, because I really think that with all our help, you can turn this around and make a better life for everyone.
Well, Gary, you seem to have not necessarily broken, but shaken up the trust in some of your relationships, not just your mother, but your wife and your son. So trust is an issue here. We've had a workshop at St. Jude's, and I don't think Smith family was there. And we suggested, it came out of that workshop, that power of attorney. There's power of attorney for care and power of attorney for finance. And Agnes, as long as you're a capable woman, the advice was that you should retain your power of attorney and not give it to anyone. Power of attorney for care may or may not be a different matter. But out of that workshop came the idea that you should retain your power of attorney for finance as long as you're a capable woman. So that's a piece of advice that you missed when you missed that workshop. And I'll pass that on to you.
I'd like to assure Mrs. Smith that we at the CCAC will do everything we can to continue the services to support you, and with changes in support from your family members, Tom and your sister, as well as Gary, I think you should be able to remain in your home for quite some time. But I will continue to work with you towards what you need in the future.
I would have some difficulty trusting Gary in dealing with Agnes's finances after what has happened. But Agnes, if you could work, I don't know whether Tom would be prepared to take on that responsibility, or if you could work with somebody at the bank so that doesn't become a temptation or an area of distrust, then I would be prepared to support that.
The way you say it, Dad, you keep saying the money's missing. Until you fess up and say you stole the money, I don't think you should go near her finances. You need to come clean to everyone here and say you stole it. Enough with it missing, enough with, oh, you took it, you borrow it. You stole the money. Until then, I feel like I can contribute. I'm a finance major at U of T. I'll do Grandma's finances. I don't mind. I can do that. I don't know why you didn't ask me before.
Well, I'm so glad to hear all this support, and I hope Gary will get his alcoholicism straightened out, and maybe Tom should handle my finances with me, and if Gary's going to try to pay the money back, I love my son. I don't want to lose him.
Well, thank you it does look like we may be able to find a way going forward. I think we've heard some very important suggestions. And this is all a journey. This is not a final, necessarily final solution. But it looks like part of this journey could involve having Tom starting to look after the day-to-day financial issues, Gary, while you're, trying to come to terms with some of the other problems that you're dealing with. And financial advisor is a very good thing. It may be that what we should do is, I'm going to pass it around for one more round. But it may be that what we've reached a point where we could probably, each one of you and us, do some homework between now and the next time we come together. So we've had a suggestion about power of attorney, and perhaps Mrs. Smith, this is something that you might just get some more information about to become a little bit more comfortable and understand exactly what that means with respect to your financial matters. You and Tom may want to actually talk about that, and the minister as well, the pastor, to try and understand how that would work. As well as perhaps some of the rest of you have offered to provide some support in that respect. And Gary, from your point of view, you've talked about getting a financial advisor for your business. It looks like your business is really in need of your attention and some advice. And so maybe you can see whether your financial advisor can also assist in some way, and if not that person, then someone else, so that it may take you a little bit of time to try and figure out who that is. Mabel has offered to help, and your sister you've got, so you also have some other people here who are willing to support you. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pass it around for one more round to see how you all see this going forward. Does this make sense? And if so, we'll adjourn, and then we'll fix another date to come back, perhaps next week, or early late this week, depending on how long it takes.
Okay, we can't forget that running a business takes money, and we do have to really grab with that financial advisor. We may still have to call upon Mama's Money to help support it, but that'll have to be decided between Tom and Mother and my wife and sister, because you have a piece in it, and see if we can build the business up, because that's really the answer. And we'll do our best to do it that way. It's no simple thing, though, Tom. You just don't suddenly take over the money. I have power of attorney, I'll give it up. And then that'll help build the trust, and I won't have any responsibility that way, but I will have to call upon you for help to make this business work.
I just want to say I'm just so grateful for everybody's help and offers of support. It's been a terrible worry to me all through this time. Thank you so much.
Yes, I think, Gary, that you can turn this around eventually, but it's going to be a lot of hard work. And yes, I will be there to help, and I feel that this is a very good suggestion that Tom work with your mom and help you with this.
I'm quite sure that all the help that has been offered both to Gary and to Mrs. Smith will be a positive point in the alcoholism, the fight against it, because those things were causing his to turn to alcohol in the first place.
Yes, I can see movement forward on this, and you should all know that our prayers are with you as you move forward and to a better solution to your family problems.
I want to thank everyone for speaking from your heart. And as Eva says, this is a journey, and I think we're just beginning. and we have a number more circles to look forward to continue to work on this.
I'm very glad that this circle has helped to clarify some points and bring some resolution, I hope.
This has been very difficult for Agnes, so I think if we can get a plan in place to deal with the finances, then maybe it'll make things a little easier between Agnes and Gary.
I'm willing to work with you, Pop, to make that financial plan there for Grandma's sake. Again, I just want her to be happy and her to get her affairs in order.
I don't have anything else to say. I just want to go home.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith. Thank you, every one of you, for coming here and participating tonight. I know these things are very difficult, and but I see that there is lots of hope, that there's so much goodwill in this room for going forward. So I want to thank you again for coming together, and after we finish the circle, we can then decide what would be a good time to come back together again.
Well, given the severity of this case, a sentence of imprisonment of 1 year, followed by a year of probation, constitutes, in my view, the likely outcome at trial. The son would also have been ordered to have no contact with his mother during the probationary period. At the end of the trial, the mother ended up confused, guilt-ridden, and traumatized. The son likely would not have received the addiction and mental health counseling he so badly needed while in custody. Now contrast this to the outcome provided by a peace-building circle process, opening the door to healing and relationship restoration. As you've seen, a restorative justice approach can lead to successful outcomes in criminal matters involving elder abuse.
Thank you for watching this video, and to all those who participated and supported it. In particular, I would like to thank Arlene Groh, who pioneered restorative approaches to elder abuse in the region of Waterloo. For over 2 decades, Arlene has spoken out about abuse of older adults, becoming a world-renowned expert on the topic. She has worked tirelessly to bring elder abuse to the attention of governments, corporations, healthcare professionals, and our society. Arlene has been instrumental in both raising awareness and looking for solutions to this previously invisible crisis. Thank you, Arlene. Finally, I would also like to thank Justices Glenn Haney and Frank Newbold for their support of this important cause and the need to have restorative remedies incorporated in our justice system.